Hello there, my name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee, and today I'm going to make waistcoats. Now, the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to use this lovely taffeta, which is just a brown, and I'm going to use this yellow lining for the back and, well, the lining. Basic shape is straight across the back and slightly fitted, not much, and then swing down the front and then swing down the front, and the front's going to have a slight point on it. And we're going to do pockets, so that's interesting. And I don't know if we do 3 pockets. I think we'll do 3 because it's taffeta. And if in doubt, use taffeta. No. Okay, so I always think of hobbits when I think of waistcoats. So we're going to do a sort of Pippin style waistcoat. Not a Frodo style waistcoat, but a Pippin style waistcoat. So let's just fold this out. Now all I'm going to use is, this is a remnants bit. It's like the end of a roll, and if you're lucky, I picked this up for 50p. So yeah, so you know, it's easy enough. Now I've got these buttons and they do say jeans time, okay, but I'm going to sew them on backwards so that I've got my brass buttons. And I've also got one of these, they're just like little slidey things, and you never see them done up, but they're there. Okay, now for the basic sort of neckline, I'm just going to use the outline of this old t-shirt. Now, I know, I do feel sorry about this t-shirt really, because its life so far has been in this sewing room. It's never left. I'm going to have to wash it and iron it soon just to bring it back into the sewing room, because it's getting quite shabby. So I'm going to use this as my pattern, and it's a very simple thing. Most waistcoats that people wear, you don't really do them up either, but we're going to do it so it's big enough for me to do up. And in that sense, what we're going to do is we're going to take a measurement of my widest part. We're then going to take, we're going to add 4 because we're going to be doing 4 lots of hem, and then we're going to divide it by 4. So hope that makes sense. And laid this out quite badly. So that's that, yeah. Now because we're not doing a front and a back, we're doing 2 front panels, and this is why it's so good, because we literally are just doing panels, so we don't need that much cloth. So if you do find a piece of cloth and you absolutely love it, you can just get away with it. Okay, so I've come up halfway, and then I need to start doing my angle. And literally, because I can then use this as a pattern for the lining at the back and the lining of the lining, as it were. So I'm quite happy with that. What I have done is I've made sure that I've got both my right sides out. Just makes life a lot easier. And then I'm going to fold this in half again. So I've lined up the side seams and the front seam, and I'm just going to do my V. So it's very, very simple. The only thing we have to remember is really armholes. Yeah, so that's that. Now you can see how little cloth that is, and I'm not a small girl, so you know, there is, if we could go to a shop and buy 1/8 of a metre, we could probably get away with it. So you know, there are times when you see fabrics that you adore and that you must have, but either they're expensive or you have no idea what to use them for. Now, yes, waistcoats in this country It only seems to be places of weddings, you know. People don't really seem to wear them, but they are very easy to wear. I've had one, and it's made out of cotton that's so thin it's almost made out of t-shirt material, and I can just put it on for work, and I know that I'm smart because technically my rules say that I have to wear makeup and I have to wear a jacket, so, and it kind of does, and yeah, it's a very safe thing to wear. So I've just marked out a guideline on this, but I don't need to do a hem allowance. I've already done the hem allowance. So it's because I'm working with two slippery fabrics. What I've done is I've given myself as much opportunity as I can not to make a mistake. But as this is only £1 per metre lining, I can probably get away with it. Now, okay, so if our fabric is too small, we can then enlarge our back panel quite easily. Yeah, we'll just enlarge the back panel. So, but as long as you remember, if you're happy with ½ inch seam allowance, then you just add how many panels there are. So there's going to be sort of there's going to be 3 seams, and then we want some room for the button. So we're going to add 4 inches to our overall chest measurement. Okie dokie. Alright, now I need to cut the back panel out, and I need to check my measurements before I do that. So, other things that we need. Let's get a corner. We need a strip of fabric for the taggly bit at the end. We need some piping for the pockets, and we also need some lining for the pockets. So the lining is pretty much squares, that's easy enough, and the piping is pretty much strips, and the taggly bit at the end is pretty much strips. But before we put the main fabric away, we are going to cut out some, well, squares, and they are going to be folded in half for the pocket flap. Okay, alright, I'll be back with all my pieces. Hello there. Okay, so yes, this make is going to be quite foot happy, I'm afraid. So, you know, I will try and explain as much as possible. Okay, I'm going to start, I always do the bits and then sew the bits together. So I'm going to start with the back, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew round the hems that are naked, as it were, just on the back panel. And I'm going to use the hemmer foot. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing this is because it's done then, and I just think it gives a nice finish. And what we will then be doing is tucking all the ends of this into the main garment. Now I am taking a bit slow just whilst I start off. This is because it's a different type of fabric, not used this fabric before, and I just want to check that it's going properly. Well, I say I've not, of course I've used lining before, but they are all slightly different. This one feels very thin and a bit see-through, so I think I might actually have to move my foot for it. No, that's not even catching at all. Okay, if I've got to go over it and do a couple of hand stitches, then I can do. So love these foots. They just curve it round and then it's all hemmed. But it is practice and it is patience, and you sort of have to do refined movements, very slightly adjust it. So I've just done along the long seam at the bottom, and I'm going to do the 2 arm seams and the back of the neck. So very, very simple. Obviously, the better you cut this, see how badly I've cut it, the easier it'll be. And I always find just 2 stitches and then start purling. So very, very easy. Now of course curves are going to be the hardest thing you do, but you know, it's practice, it really is. And it's quite good if you've got a machine that you can set or use at different speeds. So let's put that out of the way. And, okay, piping. So we're going to get rid of the hammer foot. I'm going to put that somewhere safe because I'm going to need it again. Now I have got my zipper foot. Put that in, check it's lined up. I can move my settings if you can, if not, don't worry. And all this is a 2-inch strip. Now I've got here just some normal string. Oh, there's me thinking I was very together and I got everything out. And basically I'm going to put the string in between the piece of fabric, or not. Okay. Yeah, no, I came in this morning, best intention in the world, and I was going to make a hobbit waistcoat, and I knew I had some black corduroy. And I knew I'd use the black corduroy because I made some hair ties with it. But I have no idea where I've put it. And it's not where it logically should be. So yeah, I had a little dig. I had quite a lot of digs. Okay, so what I'm doing here, very, very simple. I've still got my zipper foot on. I can use my zipper foot for all of this. It's not a problem. And I have done a test wash. Now, I know that the taffeta will be fine washing, but what I want to check is it's the same size. So whereas normally I sort of measure it before I do it, I don't need to do that here. So I've just cut off, it's actually the line of the arm pit along the top there, so, and just sewn that through. So I can just slip that in the washing machine and check that it comes back the same. Okay, so until that string turns up, I'm going to just move on. We have to do the taggly bit for the bracket at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally sew down a tube, and what we want is this tube of fabric to be the same width as my taggly thing. And rather than do 2 pieces, I'm going to just do 1 long piece, and then I'm going to turn this inside out. Now, if you're on a sewing machine and the lining does seem to suffer like this, basically what's happening is it's snagging individual threads of the waft. Yeah, make sure you've got the thinnest needle you can use, and make sure that your needle is sharp, your needle is new. So Okay, I've left a little bit unsewn, and we can turn that inside out easily enough because it's nice shiny fabric and it wants to move around, and it's quite happy to do that. Okay, so that will just pop through in its own time. I can come back to that. Okay, so my string. Funny old world, isn't it? So we have this piece of lining here, and there is a difference. The outer side is a bit more shiny than the inside. Not much of a difference, but you know, we have to sort of try and work through. Now I have my strip here, I have my string in the middle, I've folded over my string, and I'm going to put this over the top just to give it a double sew. Now what I'm going to make use of is the string to keep these two pieces of fabric in line. Now I've got my zipper foot on my machine, so in a way I'm sure on some sewing machines you can literally leave the room for this. You fold your string over, you line it up, and the machine's foot naturally pushes away the string. So what you're left with is a tube, a very thin tube, with the string in the middle. Now these are going to be the lining of the pockets. On the top of the pockets you'll have a flap, and on the bottom of the pockets you'll just have a piece of lining, piping. Okay, so it's important not to pull your string. We can come back to that and straighten it out, that's not a problem. And all I have to do is sew down the bottom. What I actually need is 4 lengths of 3 centimetres. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit more than that, so that I've got loads spare and that I don't have to worry. So what I need to do before I can do the pocket flaps, that's not very interesting, but still needs to be done. So I can come back to that. I might have done enough actually. Maybe I'll do a bit more, and I'll do that off camera. So the next thing that I can do bitwise is I have my rectangles of fabric, and these need to be the length you want for the pocket. I'm going to fold them over right side to right side, and what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to start on the open strip, and I'm going to sew most of the way round. Now it's entirely up to you whether you sew across the fold or not. In a way it does look better if you sew across the fold. This gives it a sharper edge, but it is entirely up to you, and it does depend on the fabric. If you've got a nice crisp fabric, then yeah, tricky one. And all I need to do is just sew up there a little bit, just so that when I sew it onto the main garment, pretty much towards the end, it will ping quite nicely folded shut. So let's get this done. So if you have a pencil or a knitting needle, it's quite a good idea just to push these corners out nice and sharp, and then you can, it just makes it so much crisper. So it's now right side out. And when we sew it onto the garment, we're just going to push those raw edges in, and we're just going to sew along the top there so that it keeps it all nice and shiny. Where's my pencil? Lovely. So I'll come back to that, but when we sew it over the pocket, then I'll pocket flat. So that's my sewing that I've got to get up to date with, and I must admit these are all sort of optional extras. I'm going for the full Monty of taffeta waistcoats, but you know, you can get away with ones with just no pockets or a fake pocket. That's quite easy as well. So I've got my sewing to do, and I'll switch back on when I've got something interesting. Thank you. Hello there, welcome back. I've caught up on my sewing and the back is now finished. So I've done all the hemmings round the neckline, and I've also just sewn on the straps there. So that's all finished and we can put that away. Next job is the pocket in the front of the taffeta. Now I've already cut this because I wanted it to match the other one, and yeah, I'm sorry about that, but I have done a separate video of just putting in the pocket, so if I go too fast then I can only apologise. That one? Lovely. Okay, so what we've got is a slit with a sort of dog tooth thing. So we've done a V at the end of the slit. Now what I'm doing is I'm folding over the bottom half of here. I'm placing a line of piping, which I've cut slightly longer because we don't need to worry about the back being scruffy. And then I'm placing my square of the pocket over the top. Now I'm quite lucky with this lining. It's quite see-through, so I can sort of cheat, but it is one of those things, if you want to hand tack this before you do it, then I'm with you. I can completely understand. But once it's under the sewing machine, we can just pick it up and we can check that I've got my fold and I've got my piping and then I've got my pocket. All I need to do now is I need to do a couple of stitches. And what I'm going to do is work with the theory that I'm going to sew an inch and then I'm going to check it. So away I go. Other things I need to think about is I need to think about that I'm not catching this bit of fabric, because that would be terrible. And I am sewing up to my finger, so I'm putting my finger there, holding it down, placing that on, lining it up, placing that on, and this finger's welded, yeah? Lovely. So that's done. You can do a couple of stitches just to hold it in place, and then we are going to do exactly the same on the top piece. So let's just turn it over and checking. You've got your piping, it's just sewn through, a couple of stitches and then the lining's hanging down. So we need to do this. So I have another square of fabric. I haven't got a pocket, I've got a square of fabric. I'm going to turn this round. I'm going to fold this up and then I'm going to sew that on, so that's grand. So if we do it the same way, just so it's easier to cement that learning, fold it over, merrily under my finger, and then I am going to place this on. Or I could just take this V and sew along there so that that's done. It just depends, whichever's easiest for you. Obviously this is slightly more easier, but then you haven't sort of cemented the learning. So I can see the end of my V there, and I can line that up. And I'm sewing to my finger again. Not sewing my finger, just sewing to my finger. So there we are. What we're left with is we've got these V's sticking out, so we need to tidy those up. So we've got the fabric the right side up again, and I'm literally going to make sure my lining is flat just because, and I'm going to fold that up. Now you can use a pin and push that in if you prefer. It's really up to you, and it is get it as tidy as possible, and then 3-4 stitches. That's more like 6 actually. So yeah, slide it along, give yourself some bobbin thread, tuck everything in, fold in that little V, and it is fiddly, I am aware of that, and that's why you get out your hand sew bit. So, and then we've made our jacket into an haute couture jacket. I don't know. I'm going to give myself a bit more thread and fold that over. A little stitch. So lovely. All done. Next job, give myself a little bit of thread again. We have, make sure my pocket lining is out of the way. I'm still right side up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this square that we sewed earlier on, and we left a hole to turn it inside out. So these are naked edges, rough edges. I'm going to pop those inside, and I'm going to lie this down so that I'm covering the top of the pocket, but also it'll cover the bottom. So a couple of stitches just to get it going. There's a lot of fabric here. We've got quite a few seams and quite a few folds. Keeping an eye that this doesn't unpock because it is still an unsewn seam, and we are literally, I'm holding it very firmly so that it's all in at one line. I'm going quite fast, this is just to keep the line straight. So there we go, we've got our suit style pocket or our pippin style waistcoat. Now I do get the feeling that this make is more about changing feet than it is about anything else, but I know, what can I say? Okay, so we've got the front of our jacket and we've got our piece of lining here. And what we're going to do is right side to right side. Remember that the lining is slightly more shiny on the right side. I'm going to put the taffeta down size. This is just because the taffeta is an easy sew. The lining not so much. And all I'm doing here is I'm sewing the lining to the armpit, the armhole. This is so that I've got a nice flush seam, because the next step is to sew the back on to the front. Yeah, so, you know, we are coming to an end. It's just, I think it would be wrong of me not to do this properly. And the pockets and the dangly thing are all a part of it. So I've just lined up the other front, and I'm doing the same again. Okay. So I have my two fronts now and my one back. What I need to do is I need these two sewn together, folded over, with the back in between the two. And I need, just double check that I've got the right back, the right corner of the back, and I hadn't. What I need is my rough edges on the lining side, so that when I fold this out, the right side will be on the same size as the taffeta. Yeah? Okay. Now, I know you can pin it. Don't think you can't. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to line up the seam in the fold of those two, and I'm going to keep my scraggly bits on the outside just to make life easier for me, because I can then sew in all my scraggly bits into the lining, because I'm quite a cheater. Okay, couple of stitches. Oh, we just sucked that right in, didn't we? Poor machine. Let's go again. It's because I've still got my zipper foot on there. Maybe I should change my foot. Alrighty, so now that it's started, away we go. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to sew in my back lining to this seam, and same again, I need this seam right up to the top and then down. So there we go, and I can go over the seam again. I'm actually going to move my needle to the middle because that's causing me problems. And it is just catch it in between these two. Oh, I haven't sewn up my pocket. I'll do that in a minute. I'll do that next. So that's done. It's looking a lot more finished now, isn't it? So we've got the front here with the seamed armhole, and then all we have to do is bind the front and the back is attached. Okay, so back to the pocket. Sorry about that, guys. So give it a good shake. What we don't want, we want the pocket to lie flat, and it's going to be then sewn into the lining. So we can be a bit cheeky and keep it a bit rough and ready because nobody's going to see this. But what I am going to do is I'm going to sew it up, that's a must, and then I can trim it if I want to, just so that the garment lies flat. Now, yeah, it's going through quite a lot of fabric, so it's going to make a noise, but do give it a good shake just so that your pocket hangs right. And then, simple matter, coming up to the corner, untucking my bobbin thread that's caught up. And again, needle down. What I'm going to do is stop when I come to the top, but I want everything out of the way and everything possible tucked in. Yeah? Makes sense, doesn't it? Here we go, coming up to the top, and I am sewing to my finger again because I've got everything placed under that finger. Okay, now really what I would like to do is I would like to do the other side before I do the front. It's just going to be confusing for me otherwise. So I'm going to switch the camera off, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to get the other side matching this side, and then I'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. I just needed to do that. Okay, so the next step is where do you want to turn this inside out? Now I'm going to go with the bottom. Okay, it really is. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew up the front and the back lining, and we're going to just let that all hang out, yeah? And then when we've done that, we're going to get it round the right way, and we're going to do the same on the other front. And then we're going to top stitch the bottom seam. So, got this all lined up. Now, with my hands underneath, I'm making sure that I've got nothing else in there, so... And yeah, what I'm also doing is I'm making sure my points meet. Nice smooth flat line. Now what I'm doing is coming to the V, leave the needle down. It's not much of a corner, but I do want it to be nice. Lovely, lovely. Now, I can do the first half of the V, but I can't do the second half. So, let's get that done. Just to strengthen it. Okay, that can be popped out. Now, we're going to get this the right side way round now, just so that we don't get it all in a knot. So we can see that we've got the top joined into the back, the seam of the armpit, which we did first, and then the seam of the back into the front part, and then this done. Yeah? So what we need to do now is we need to do exactly the same again. So we are pulling the whole garment through here. Lovely. And giving it a shake, making sure I've got nothing catched up, and then I can start sewing again from the same point. Lovely. A couple of reverse stitches. We are going to put stress on that seam when we turn it inside out. Lovely, needle down, sharp point, just because. Sharp point, and then all I have to do is I have to make sure that this is tidy at the top and that I've catched my lining all the way down, and this is the V at the front. Do you know what's going through my head at the minute? I've done an awful lot of sewing on one bobbin. Okay, so then literally pull it through really roughly, rip all your stitches, and that's fine. Okay, so now we've got it all the way round. We need to push our fingers in and finish that seam. Now what I'm going to do, so it looks nice and symmetrical, is I'm going to finish this seam, but I'm going to sew all around this bottom V. You know, it's a choice really, isn't it? You're going to see the top stitches on this, so why not make it part of the decoration? So I've got it pinged for 2 inches, and then I'm going to ping the last 2. Make sure that lies flat. Lovely. Corner, and then all I'm going to do is just continue that top stitching over to the point of the front of the waistcoat. And what I'm also doing is I'm just rubbing it between my finger and forefinger just to get this point pointy. Now you could ask, why didn't I just leave the hole bigger? The reason I didn't leave the hole bigger is because it would have been harder to turn inside out. So so I need to do the same on the other side, and obviously I need to do the finishing, and I need to put my buttons on it and my buttonhole. Now I should have done the other side first, shouldn't I, so that we could do the buttonholes together. Lovely. Now this is a unisex waistcoat, so I could do the buttonholes. So all I need to do is top stitch that. Yeah, that's fine, isn't it? So now, yeah, if you've got a machine that can do buttonholes, that's brilliant. I have, so I'm going to do them on the machine. Now, I've got my buttons ready. Yeah, I'm going to actually sew them on back to front. just because I don't like that pattern, but I love that pattern, and that's fine. And yeah, so yeah, I need to make sure that my hole is big enough, and I need to make sure that my foot is a happy foot, because at the minute I've still got my zipper foot on. Let's get rid of it. Yeah, you don't need to use a buttonhole foot. It's just quite nice so you can see what you're doing, but yeah. We're going back to a traditional foot now. I've got thread in the machine, and I'm going for 2 buttons, and I have a strip that wide, so I can just guesstimate for now these holes. I've got the machine set on the 4 and 2 setting. Quite happy. Make sure the needle's up before you do your 1 setting, and I've just laid the button there. I'm on my 4 and 2, good couple of stitches, and I'm going on my 3, keeping an eye when I need to stop. Lovely. Needle up, and you can go round again if you feel like it's not close enough. I do have issues with this machine in the fact that its user doesn't treat it with respect, I suppose. Okay, just lining up my corner again so I can adjust this, and I need it the same distance from that point to there, and then down it starts on my 4 setting, a couple of stitches on my 1 setting, and I'm going to use this as a judge. Now, when you are sewing something with lining, you really have to make sure, you know, all this that I'm doing, it's making sure that my seams are popped straight, and that my lining and my fabric are lying next to each other. So, okay. So I've got a little bit of finishing up to do, i.e. this bit, and other than that, it's finished, except for 2 buttons, which is nothing, isn't it? You don't want to see me thread a needle, do you? Because it's funny. I know. And every time you buy anything sewing wise, they tend to give you a free needle threader anyway. So I've got loads of them, so I absolutely have no excuse. And oh, I'm still on my button stitch. Alright, that's fine. So I'm just top stitching here, and then I have my nearly finished garment. Anyway, it's a pleasure doing this make with you. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Sorry it was so long. I can waffle for England. And yeah, like, share and subscribe.